All right, is everybody ready to get started back?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Everybody can, just want to make sure everybody's here. If y'all post like a thumbs up or something in chat, or just turn on your camera for a moment. Just want to make sure we're not leaving anybody behind. Now I felt like I rushed through that, and I'm sorry. Does anybody have any questions following that, big information drop? No, we're all good?
I had a,
oh. Yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
Okay. I was going to ask if there was any place that you would suggest for buying the materials if we want to get them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Vortman's has a kit ready to go. So they're just out of the red clay right now. So you're more than welcome to just pop in and buy the starter kit. They'll have every tool you'll need. And they've got it all just put together, so you don't have to go searching for it. If you want, you can get the basic toolkit, I think, at Hobby Lobby, and throw a coupon on it, and I think it's like $7. But that won't include all the extras. It'll just have the tools in it. You can also, there is a clay supply store in Dallas called Trinity Ceramic. If you're anywhere near that area at any time, they'll have everything too, and they'll also have the clay because they sort of got a warehouse.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question regarding studios. So I know you said Mondays we do our Zoom meetings and Wednesdays are our work days, but do we have assigned workspaces?
Good question. So they've sort of let up on our social distancing restrictions in a way that everybody doesn't have an assigned space. So, and I should have gone over this. We've got 7 social distance workstations. So that means each station will have a set of tools. They'll be covered by plastic or brick, and they'll be separate from each other. So you can come in and work and not have to worry about sharing a space with somebody that isn't 6 feet apart or behind a roll of plastic. So if you were to come in and work in studios, like your question, Ruth, you can just pick whichever one makes you feel most comfortable. Just make sure you sign your name on the little sign-in sheet, so that way we know who was where at what time. That way, if somebody does get exposed, we can tell everybody who was on that list.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wendy, did you have a question? Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, your mic popped up and I was like, oh no. Okay, so we're ready to move on? Yeah? Excellent. Excellent. Alrighty, so is everyone seeing Project 1 coil building? All right, so Project 1 is going to be our coil building project. We are learning Project 1 is focused on learning foundational methods of construction and giving a historical perspective of clay. We will be focusing on 2 methods of construction, the primary method being coiling and the secondary method being pinching. And we will be emulating the building and decorating techniques of one of my favorite artists, a real go-getter, Maria Martinez. We're going to be creating coiled vessels that we will smooth out and paint with not just black, and I need to edit this. We've got other colors of Terra 6. So if you want to do brown, or if you want to do white, or if you want to do orange, you can sort of mix them as you please. They'll all sort of do the same thing, but give you different color palettes. And we're gonna paint them with this terrasigillata, and burnish to a glossy sheen. That's how we're gonna get our pretty, we're not gonna glaze these. These are just gonna be burnished. We're also gonna be using paper stencils to create patterning on our pots and painting them over with a coat of unburnished terracig to create a matte finish that will complement the glossiness. And when we do our presentation, that'll all sort of make more sense. So the concept for this project is Maria Martinez, who is a Native American traditional potter, indigenous to New Mexico. She's part of the Pueblo Tawe tribe. She rediscovered a lost method of creating pottery. So a bunch of archaeologists had been digging up a local site, and they're like, wow, this pottery is great. How did they make that? And they reached out to her because her family has been creating pottery forever. And they're like, hey, can you bring this back? Can you make this again? Because this pottery is brilliant. The method was deep within her culture as an indigenous artist, and she chose to decorate her pots in the way that informed her personal heritage. You're going to make your pot the same way, and you will build your vessel using the coil and pinch technique and decorate it with stencils. It says they should reflect your own personal history and maybe your heritage. That's sort of loose, and loose in the fact that, like, we've all got varying heritages, and you can say, well, maybe my heritage is like cats, you know, playing piano, and that's what it is. And that's what you can do. Maybe your heritage is K-pop, maybe your heritage is indigenous. Just pull something that really speaks to that self, and let's make some fun stencils to create our patterns with. This assignment's pretty simple. You're just going to build one coil pot. The coil pot must be a minimum of 6 inches tall and 6 inches wide. You can go taller and you can go wider. That's up to you. And you can choose from any of the traditional shapes from the lecture or develop a shape yourself. We're going to paint and burnish them and then stencil. We'll go over more what to pay attention to as far as like creating this pot and burnishing it as we get into it. So let's go ahead and do our presentation here. All right, is everybody seeing slide 1? Cool. So traditional methods for contemporary purpose. What that means is we're going to use just the most original version of pottery to create contemporary pots that reflect us, and we are contemporary humans. This is an example of a Maria Martinez pot. And this is sort of what I meant when we've got a matte finish and a glossy finish. And at no point has this pot ever seen glaze. This is just clay body, and it's literally just rubbed or burnished till it shines, and then she'll put a coat of that matte over some paper stencils, or even the more talented people in her matriarchal pottery group would often freehand this stuff. So a lot of really talented people. All right, so let me see if I can pop back, exit. I am the worst at this. Okay, let's restart. During an excavation in 1908, a professor of archaeology, like I said, discovered black on white biscuitware. So when we say biscuitware, that means it's only been fired once. We're using the term biscuit or bisque, B-I-S-Q-U-E. That is a first firing. It's a firing we do to get all the chemical water out of clay so that it is porous like a sponge and can absorb the glaze or the paint that we're going to put on next. While searching through the sandy desert, he discovered these broken pieces, and it was a very specific wear, and it had that bright, that shiny exterior. And he reached out to Maria, who was already like an established potter, which sometimes like this never happens, you know. Academics never reach out to craftspeople, especially not indigenous craftspeople, to bring back things. And so this is a particularly important moment in clay history because she revived a dead form of pottery. It was dead, and she brought it back just by reaching into her, you know, primal knowledge that she'd always sort of known, and using local clays and local techniques, and she brought it back to existence, which is such a big thing to do. This is Maria Martinez. She is like the cutest. She worked alongside her husband, Julian. That says Jew, but it's Julian, for many years, and developed and renewed this ancient technique, becoming the matriarch of a family of potters. So you can go to Santa Fe to this day, and you can meet her children. Her children are currently running, you know, this pottery family. So they are using the same techniques she's used, and her work goes for, you know, thousands of dollars, thousands and thousands of dollars. Just a quote from her: she thought of clay as a living substance, as a gift of Mother Earth, and she began her pottery making process with prayers and offerings of cornmeal, which she spread over the ground before gathering the clay. After that, she mixed the clay with sand and water, taking great care to find just the right consistency. And that's sort of a basis for a lot of pottery, because there's a lot of religion around clay as the basis for humanity. So clay is living, and that gives it like a very specific weight that you can't always find in other forms. So if clay, it already has a deep emotional weight. All right, so how does she get it to fire that glossy black? So she uses a TerraSig, just like we're gonna use, but she pit fires her clay. So what happens is when they pit fire, all that carbon that get from the charred wood gets trapped in the terra sigillata, that clay slip, and it makes it just a rich, warm, toasty black color. And you really can't emulate that perfectly without just doing exactly this. And pit firing is a form of firing, one of the forms of firing we're going to talk about. And basically, they just dig a hole in the ground, and they'll just stack pots on pots and pots on top of each other, just fill it up, and then they will burn wood on top of it, and they'll burn it for days. So pit firings take a long time. They're not immediate, and they're really not even like a finished form of pottery. So you can't really get the necessary temperature in a pit fire to call a clay piece done. The situation is not ideal for full finish of any pottery. But these vessels aren't really used for functional purposes. They're mostly decorative or ceremonial, as they always had been. So here are some fun examples of Maria Martinez pots, and I wanted to pull out some really nice patterning work we have here and just give you an idea of shapes. So the shapes are not very complicated. As you can see right here, we've just got a wide neck and a wide belly that will meet to about a base that's about as wide as the neck. So it's just, imagine if you would, like when people do this, when they're referencing like a curvy person, the same can be said